and that will be on the subject of the Florida Marine Spill Analysis System in the state of Florida. The two presenters will be Mr. Christopher Friel, Mr. Kenneth Haddad. Mr. Friel.
I'm Ken Haddad, and here we are first on the docket. When you read our innovation title, I'm sure no immediate images are conjured up, so I'd like you to close your eyes for just a second and imagine Alaska, Prince William Sound, and now picture the Exxon Valdez on a rock spilling millions of gallons of oil. That was 1989, and in Florida, a legislative task force quickly determined that Florida could not efficiently respond to an oil spill. We had outdated maps and information on the environment. We were asked to correct this deficiency. To do this, we developed a geographic information system-based oil spill analysis system, and I'm not going to bore you with the details. But in the process, we introduced a new technology that revolutionized how the state coordinates and responds to oil spills by bringing large volumes of accurate and timely information to responders. You can open your eyes now. We also developed and passed model legislation that established our agency as a prime responder to oil spills, and also established a very innovative damage assessment formula that was based on our analysis system. Now, to accomplish our innovation, we had to reinvent how we did business and take risk of failure. For example, we used satellite imagery to map wetlands, and then this GIS technology to develop a comprehensive response capability. Each of these technologies have high rates of failure in government. To make this work, we formed strategic partnerships with other governmental agencies to help define needs and reduce costs. We networked with industry to share our information and also gain their support in this process. We developed private partnerships through contract that tremendously reduced our system development time. And most importantly, we initiated this as a client-based technology development and had them involved in every step of the process. We threw out the old paradigm of a data manager coming in a white coat, asking questions, going away, spending millions of dollars and years, and coming back and providing a useless video game. Our clients were given ownership in the process, and if we failed, they failed.
What we came up with is a process and technological tool for developing mission-critical information to spill managers in exactly the format they want it, when they need it. Since we were designing an entirely new way of responding to oil spills, there was no incremental way of refining our innovation. It would have to simply be tested under real-life conditions, and we had that opportunity in August of '93 when a fairly large oil spill occurred in Tampa Bay. 3 vessels collided, started leaking all kinds of fuel into Tampa Bay, burst into flames, started drifting towards some ecologically sensitive areas. This was the acid test of our innovation. Our innovation fundamentally enhanced the spill response in many ways. The first 72 hours are critical in the response environment, and misinformation is common. There's all kinds of rumors floating around. It's nearly impossible to characterize the situation. We provided the first map within 4 hours and formed the fundamental basis for all subsequent decisions and tried to maintain a focus on natural resources. Other agencies' sophisticated modeling efforts failed. They simply broke down, and we provided fundamental information that was usable in the command center and out in the field. Our maps could be tailored to their needs. Prior to the innovation, they would be using maps that were almost 15 years old. We were able to generate maps every 4 hours. We gave one standard picture, which minimized the squabbling between people who were trying to say that they knew what was going on out there. We provided a nonstop supply of maps and ultimately plotted about a mile worth of maps laid end to end. Press conferences were ultimately based around the map updates, and following one of the press conferences, we were visited by CNN. 36 hours into the spill, CNN put some of the spill characteristics out on TV. Our maps were fundamental in their coverage. We received 2 calls from other state agencies. They wanted to come and view our innovation in process. Of course, we had to decline because we were trying to manage a spill. Within 4 weeks of the spill, 2 organizations forwarded draft MOU language to try and have us transfer our innovation to their organizations. We designed the system with an open architecture that we knew would ultimately be used or could be used by 450 coastal counties and over 30 coastal states. Since then, we've worked with 10 of the states to transfer the innovation. The legislation we passed is also considered a model nationwide, and people are tracking its development as the damage assessment unfolds. As popular as the system and legislation have proven, what we found is that the information itself is most valuable. We've got an incredible demand for direct access to the information, and that's led us to work on other innovative ways to provide rapid access to the information. We've teamed up with some federal initiatives and their innovations to provide rapid access to the information, and those efforts will be recognized later this month when Al Gore presents us with an award for reinventing government and gives us the Hammer Award for changing the way business is done. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about our innovation.
That timing was absolutely perfect.
It wasn't at 3 in the morning.
Right? What was that again?
It wasn't at 3 in the morning.
All I can tell you is that you two are the luckiest of all because you got it all behind you now. I'm going to ask Max Sherman, who wishes to raise a question.
The basis of the innovation, of course, you have the availability of data. What would have happened had that accident happened in someplace other than the Tampa area at the early stages of this, where the data might not have been available if it had not been either in Tampa Bay or South Florida?
Well, in reality, the data hadn't been available for Tampa Bay, and what we had was a rapid way to input the information from all walks of government and private industry providing with the data. And we literally had, within one day, all the information we had taken a year to develop in South Florida as our prototype.
Could I just follow up
Yes,
and ask
please
you
do.
what might happen in another state? Because I know in the site visit it mentions that Texas is one of those that made an inquiry for the availability of that data.
In another state, I'll use Alaska as an example because that's where we had a major spill. You just need to follow the press. In essence, it was a very confused response situation. In any other area, the response could be a very confusing and mixed multi-organizational response that is duplicative and overlapping. Our innovation made the Tampa Bay oil spill response recognized as one of the smoothest that has ever occurred.
Todd?
First of all, as a resident of South Tampa Bay, let me thank you very much. I had a question about the origins of this. As I understand it, you said that there are about 10 other states that have passed similar legislation and are on the track towards this. Is that correct?
No other state has passed the legislation.
Oh.
We're the only state with the legislation, but we're working with 10 other states that are in some stage of developing a similar system.
And as I understand it, the system that you have in place is the most advanced of these systems. But were there any that had actually begun before
Yes.
Florida? Which ones were those? And
Texas started about the same time that Florida started, and Maine came in about 6 months after Texas.
okay, and why were those not as advanced, if you can be modest or immodest? Why are they not as advanced then as Florida's, which began after?
There's a
those?
couple of things. One, they tried to go it alone. They refused to make a strategic partnership with private industry in the area of software development. One thing we believe very strongly is the appropriate application of technology. Let's not try and solve everything with a computer. So we used commercial software, whereas they tried to start developing from scratch.
They took the white coat technician approach, which we disdain in a certain way.
Harriet?
This is sort of a follow-up to that. Essentially, you created or pulled together different components to create a new software, a new program. Is that correct? Is that itself transferable, or are you saying that other states would have to start from scratch?
It's totally transferable. The only thing that they would have to substitute in is data specific to their area.
And you're willing to, and you have been sharing that, in other words. Fine, thank you.
Thank you. Luis?
Aside from the technological aspects, what was the bigger obstacles in overcoming to implement your innovation?
I think, as with most innovations, the biggest obstacle is getting the funds to implement it. I think we have very much overcome that, and to demonstrate that, in this year's legislature that just passed, they actually gave us $400,000 more to complete this full development for the state than we had asked for in our agency budget request.
Max?
The other significant obstacle was the fact that so many different agencies hold so many different parts of the data puzzle. So you have to do a lot of things on a handshake and develop a lot of MOUs to get people to start passing around their data. So we had to overcome some organizational obstacles to working together.
How did you do that? How did you overcome those obstacles?
We initiated the start of this innovation by bringing everybody into one room together and basically saying, you're our clients, you're going to work with us. And we didn't tie their hands on that, but you're going to work with us through this process, and if it's going to be usable or not usable, it's basically going to be on your shoulders.
One last question from Dean Sherman.
Could you expand a little bit on the public-private, because you had sources that were not all public?
The private industry, after Exxon Valdez, has also made great movements towards trying to update information. That was a tremendous lack. For example, we formed an alliance that came forward with the Marine Spill Response Corporation, which is made up of many of the oil companies. And we've been working with them to update the data in Florida. They provided us with the Tampa Bay, some of the Tampa Bay data, so that was a payoff there.